So my conversation this morning is about Tish'a BeAb in modern times. We've all, I'm assuming everybody in the room has at least been to Israel, at least once, been to Yerushalayim, at least once, and see what's going on, the build-up that's going on, the population that's going on, the Torah learning that's going on. There's so much going on in Yerushalayim, and we still come every year and mourn and cry, and the day that we all feel for some reason just it's like that day of, and how do we deal with those two contradictory feelings? I'm obligated to feel depressed and upset, and at the same time I see what's going on and I'm excited, I'm happy. I go to the kotel and you see the pictures of the people packed at the kotel, on the high holidays, and even at the Shabbat, if you go now on the live webcam, packed with people, and we say, we talk about the Yerushalayim being destroyed and being things that it's very hard to reconcile. So I'm trying to, today's conversation, trying to figure out how we should be reacting to those contradictory feelings. Good? So far? Okay. So I'm going to start with the jumping off point of the Nahem Tefillah that we're going to be saying in Minhag. By the way, the Minhag of Aram Sova is apparently only to say it in Minhag, but most other Edut HaMizrach people say it in all the Tefillot. From Arbi last night, in Shahari, in Minhag, and they say Nahem in every Amidah. So I'm going to read you the words that come out of the Kol Yaakov Sidur. Okay, I'm going to translate a few of the words. Okay, and then we'll see how that holds true as we go through the class. Okay, so the words start like this: Nahem Adonai Eloheinu et Avlei Tzion. We ask Hashem to please give Nehama, consolation, to those that are mourning over Yerushalayim. Ve'et ha'ir, the city, ha'hareva ve'habizuya ve'hashomema mibeli banea hi yoshevet. Translation: Ir ha'hareva, the city that is destroyed. Ha'hareva, currently. Ve'habizuya, that's downtrodden. Shomema, it's desolate. Mibeli banea hi yoshevet, there are no inhabitants. Our children are not there. Those are the words that we say. Kol Yaakov Sidur Nahem. Now, you read those words. It sounds almost like we're lying to ourselves. We're praying to Hashem in Amidah, and I'm saying something that seems almost untrue. Desolate, nobody there, downtrodden. In the eyes of the world, Yerushalayim maybe is one of the top 10 tech cities, I don't know, in the world. I don't know, things going on in Israel in general. How could we say these words in Amidah, to Hashem, or Shabbat, and we sound like we're lying? Right? Sounds like an issue. So that's the jumping off point. And we'll start with this. Shulchan Aruch, always a good place to look. Right? Shulchan Aruch says like this. Someone who sees the cities, the city of Yehuda, the portion of Yehuda which covers all Yerushalayim and also the outskirts, Midbar. What do you see when you see it, Midbar Behur Benan, in their destruction? You say, a statement of Omer Are Kochecha Hayu Midbar. We say, Hashem, your holy cities became Midbar, desert or desolate. The Koreh, you're obligated to tear your clothing like an Abed. So that's Shulchan Aruch. And obviously it was written in the times when Yerushalayim was not in the control of the Jews. Israel was not in control of the Jews either. Right? Talking about 1100s, right? Behur Benan, says the Magen Avraham. What does it mean Behur Benan? In their destruction, that you're obligated. He says, Af al pi sheyoshvim bahem Yisrael. Even though the Jews were living in Israel, living in Yerushalayim, he says, Kevan sheha'umot moshlim alehem mikre Benan. Since the foreign nations were ruling over Israel, we call that Churban. Even if the Jews are all living there, but they're not in control, that's called Churban, and therefore you'll be obligated to tear your clothes if you see Yerushalayim inhabited with people, with Jews, but not under Jewish control. That'll be tear. So this whole topic, right, for most of Jewish history since the destruction of Bayit Sheni, wasn't an issue, because we were not in Israel. We were all over the world. The Jews were nowhere there. It started to become a problem, or not going to say a problem, but more, it was in people's minds as we started to, the Aliyot started, 1800s, 1900s. We started to get Jews moving back into Eretz Israel, and now they start to see we're building up the cities, and well, we're not really in the destruction mode anymore. So I'm going to bring you first the source. This is from Baruch Halevi Epstein. He's more well known for his perush called Torah Tumimah Torah, so you know what that is. And he wrote already in 1938 about this Tefillah of Nachem, where he talks about the destruction of Yerushalayim. He says, Yadua, we know that the Teorim, these descriptions, Musabim al Yerushalayim, that we talk about the city being destroyed in shambles and the Yesh La'ir, he says you have to say, Ki acharei shebizman hazeh Yerushalayim benuya berama, batei bet He says in 1938 he's talking about. The city is already beautiful and built up. So imagine what we're talking about from 1938 to now. He's like before we even have a city, right? The state was founded in 48. This is 1938. So it's still under the British control at the time. And he's already starting to question these words that we say in the Tefillah of saying the city's destroyed and the city's desolate. The Gam Yushem Yehudim Behamon, he says, full of Jews all over the place. And then he quotes this Shulchan Aruch that I just told you. And he said for him, he was okay to keep the Tefillah the way it was because it was still not under Jewish control. And that was okay, because that's still the way we explain Shulchan Aruch, that considered destroyed. But that obviously changed. So as we go through, history, and we went through 48, and okay, still we had a lot of troubles, and Yerushalayim was still split. Half the city was in the control, especially the old city of the real Yerushalayim was still in the control of the Goyim, right, of the Arabs, until 1967. Baruch Hashem, Udu Hashem Kitov, unity, unified Jerusalem. And then the problem really started now, because now we are actually in control of the entire city, and that destructive, the description of Yerushalayim doesn't work anymore. And the Goyim, they're not in control anymore either. And what? The Tefillah didn't change yet. So in 1978, I'm going to be talking about. So this is Rabbi Chaim David Halevi. He was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv after Chacham Ovadia. When Chacham Ovadia became the chief rabbi of Israel, they appointed him, Sfaradi, the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. And he was chief rabbi for a very long time. He's a very well-known rabbi. And he has a book, Tish'a She'ilot. I'm going to read to you a question that's very pertinent to what was asked him in 1978. It says like this. Someone says the question, and they tell him. After we were, again, if anybody wants the sheets, online right now, 9ab.SCA.com/Jelly. 9ab.SCA.com/Jelly. The popular newsroom. So, question was asked like this. He says, well, now we own Eretz Yisrael. After those, after the 6-day war, we conquered all of Jerusalem. We own the old city. Har HaBayit is ours. Makom HaMikdash is ours. This was again before they had given it back. But we're in control of the entire area, right? And he says he wants to know, why do we still need to fast on Shabbat? That was the question that was asked in the Rabbi. Do we need to still fast anymore? Maybe we don't have to fast anymore. It's over. We got back to Yerushalayim. City's being built. We're in control. Why do we still need to fast? Maybe we can stop fasting. And he says, can I please have your answer back? Answer me back as soon as you can. So the rabbi starts out with, depending on how many places you're going to go to today, some of them I'm sure you're going to come to. This is a very famous nevuah. It's from Soffer Zechariah. It has to do about this topic. The Jews that came back to Bavel from Bavel after the building of the second Bayit, they had the question. So for the last 70 years we've been fasting, right? And we've been wailing over Jerusalem, but now we're back in town, and we got Beit HaMikdash. Do we still need to fast on Shabbat anymore? That's the ask Zechariah the Navi this question. And he gets a nevuah from Hashem, and Hashem tells them, I'll paraphrase for you, he tells them that, listen, for the last 70 years you've been fasting, the fasting's not for me. I don't need you to fast, the fasting's for you. And I don't need you to cry, pray. That's for you. That's for you guys to remember the loss that you've had. And Hashem says you should know that all the fasts are now going to become days of happiness and joy and this, that. And they get the answer they don't need to fast anymore. For the destruction of the Bayit Mishon, because they had Beit HaMikdash. So the rabbi sends this back to them. He tells them this is the answer. You see very clearly that while the Beit HaMikdash was there, they didn't have to fast anymore. But right now, we still don't have the Beit HaMikdash. And therefore, even though we are in control and we have a beautiful city and we're building up and we've got growth and we've got world renowned Yerushalayim is famous all over the place, Still, the Beit HaMikdash is worth it for us to have to fast at least. Part 2 of the question he was asked, okay, he sends back a response, and he says, okay, I can accept that. I don't need you to tell me that I understand that the Mikdash will fast about the Beit HaMikdash, but still to describe it in the Tefillah, like I started out with this conversation of destroyed, destructive, desolate, nobody there. How could we say that that's true? And this is what the Rabbi answers that. He says, Bezot, that point that you're asking about, Tzadakta, you're right. He says, Gam ani hirgashti, I felt it also, Tish'a BeAb harishon acharei mלחמת ששת הימים. The Rabbi says, even the first Tish'a BeAb, after the 6-day war, and I was in the middle of my Amidah, she'eneni yachol yoter lomar b'tfilah devarim ela. He said, I couldn't say these words. He said, I couldn't say the words, says the Rabbi. Shehem bechinat dover shekarim l'fnei Hashem. He says, I feel like I'm lying in front of Hashem, saying these words of the Amidah, of Nahem. He says, Ki lo zo bilvad shekol hashana kula. He says, not only now, he says the whole year. B'yemei Hag, Moed. You see, we saw all the pictures, what's going on in Yerushalayim. A lot of us have been there, but we've been for Bar Mitzvahs. Every Thursday they called us back. Every Monday they called us back. There's people all over the place. It's a place of happiness and joy. I can't bring myself to say the words. Yerushalayim is destroyed and desolate, and without its children, I can't say that. I can't do it. And therefore he wants to say like this. He says, Hine ata. He says, K'shaba adam l'sham afilu b'Tish'a BeAb. Even if you go to the kotel now, put the kotel camera on. We have it inside one of the rooms. You'll see. She'eno yachol shelo lahush simcha pnimit. It's impossible to not have a little bit of that feeling of joy when you see all Am Yisrael together, sitting there at the kotel, even on Shabbat, even though they're mourning, you still feel joy. We see all these thousands of people filling the courtyard outside of Beit HaMikdash, and therefore he says, Lachen, this rabbi is wild, he says, Lachen, En Safek Sheyesh Mishum Dover Shekarim B'fnei Hashem. There's no doubt in my mind that if you say the words that are written in the Kol Yaakov Sidur, you are lying in front of Hashem. That's what the rabbi says. Right? I know, look at that. Rabbi's going to go over and kill David Cash. I don't know, we're not finished. We're in the middle still. I know, I'm blowing your mind. But
I
yeah, give me a few minutes.
I've heard this before, and I thought about it myself many times.
You did, right?
Because as far as I remember, they say, you can't overdo it. When you get up after 7 days,
that's true.
God forbid,
and why we're thinking about something,
and then once a year you're inside, and then now 2,000 years. I mean,
good. Right, so it sounds like you're coming down on so far on the side of Rabbi Chaim David HaLevi. Okay, the big rabbi, it's not a joke. And he says, this is what he wants to do. Lachen en safek, he says to change the word, but he wants to be careful. He says, Misiba zeh, he says, because of this reason, I feel like I was lying. Nahagti anochi losif mila ahat bilvad. I added one word to the tefillah of Nahem. What did he do? L'shanot milah, he said, b'nosach Nahem kidei lehimalet b'divrei sheker. I want to run away from a lie. I don't want to lie. So he says, I say instead, Nahem Hashem Elokeinu et evle Tzion et Yerushalayim ha'ir shehaita hareva u'bzuya. He turns it into the past tense. So then it says ha'ir ha'hareva, the one that is destroyed. Shehaita. It was at one point in time destroyed and desolate and without its children and without it, and that's true. And therefore I'm still saying Nahem, we don't have Beit HaMikdash, but I can't lie. I have to switch the word. Guess what? Last night I prayed in Islandhurst, and they used the Teba Sidur. So I checked. I want to see. I'll read to you what it says in the Teba Sidur from Nahem. Nahem Adonai Eloheinu et Avlei Tzion ve'et Evlei Yerushalayim. So far the same. Ha'ir shehaita hareva u'bzuya sho'emah. They actually changed it in the Sidur. They go into the past tense. And you saw it in Nahem, if you're going to pray in Islandhurst, that's all the books they have, you'll see that that's what it says. It was printed, this Teva printed in 1979, and they put a footnote on the bottom right next to it. It says, Al-Pi Rabbi Chaim David HaLevi. That they changed the text based on his Tish'a. That he says that we can't say this anymore, it's a lie. It's outright lie. It says, and they actually changed the Sidur. Kol Yaakov did not change the Sidur, it still says it, and we'll see in a minute why. How much time do I have? So the Ashkenazim, he says even worse. Their text is worse than ours, much more destructive. about the things that were going on, and therefore he says, I have to highlight it, I'll read it for you. He says the Ashkenazim more the words. He says, he says, he says the words of Ashkenaz says ha'avela, that's it's still in avelut, mibeli baneha, without any of its children. That's what they say in their Tish'a. Ha'hareva mimeonotea, it doesn't have any buildings. Ha'bezuya, it's disgraced. Mikevoda, it has no kavod. Ha'shomema me'en yoshev, it has no inhabitants. That's what they say in their Nosach, in their Tefillah of Nachem. So he says that's even worse than that. Forget about that one. That was like not even on the list, according to the Bihayim, and therefore he changes it into the past tense. Yes, yeah.
Why do we continue reading Echad when it's Tanakh?
So he doesn't say stop fasting. Good. He doesn't say stop fasting. He doesn't say, he agrees that there needs to be Tish'a BeAb. We still have what to mourn for, but not to commemorate, but not to say in literal current terms things that are not true. Yes, we have to have Tish'a BeAb. Yes, we still have to Bet HaMikdash. We got it. We understand that that's the main goal. But you can't say along the way, this destroyed city that has no inhabitants. We look at Yerushalayim, impossible to say such a thing. Not only the city proper, the outskirts are all built up. How much is it supposed to buy a part of Yerushalayim? Millions? What do you mean desolate? What do you mean without people? What are you talking about? How could you say that in Amida? That's his point. Okay. Enter Chacham Obadiah into the conversation. Okay. And this is, I'm pretty sure, why you guys didn't change the text. Okay. But actually, before we go to Chacham Obadiah, I'm going to bring one more source. One more source, Chacham David Shlush, who's also a very well-known rabbi. He was 60 years the chief rabbi of Netanya. So many of our people that didn't come to America ended up in Israel. They were under his jurisdiction. Netanya, Bat Yam, Holon, that area. He was the chief rabbi. Okay, so actually, no, I'll for this out. But no, he was the chief, very well-known chief rabbi. 60 years. What he writes. He also writes that at the beginning that he says that you can't say that this is just true. It's not true anymore. We cannot say these words. Listen to the words. He wrote his own text. He wanted to change the text. Not just one word, he wants to rewrite the entire text. And he wasn't the only one. Rav Shlomo Goren, the chief rabbi of Tzahal, wrote his own text. There was a whole bunch of different texts going out there to try to change the Tefillah because it's not true. So he wrote like this. This is a wild one. Okay, he says like this. This is Rabbi Shlush writing. He says, this is my suggested text. Nachem Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem, please give consolation. Evle Mikdashecha, those that are mourning over the Mikdash, because we're not mourning over Yerushalayim anymore. Yerushalayim is better. So, right, we say before, Yerushalayim, the city. No, the city's done. We're good. The city's being built. The city's done. We're still mourning the Mikdash. That Har Tzion Sheshomem, right, the mountaintop where, right, that is still no good. Why? We believe Banav Yoshev, which is true. There are no Jews at the top of Har Moriah, right? He says, Shifha Tirash Givirta, right? The Shifha, the maidservant, inherited the master. Who's that? He says, Bnei Hagar Banu Alav Biskadam. The children of Hagar, the servant of Sarah, built their mosque on our mountain. בני הגר בנו בשנתם, ואין אנו יכולים לראות ולהשתחוות לפניך ובבחירתך. We cannot go up to the mountain to pray to you, to bring korbanot. בנווה הדרך, in the glory place, בבית הגדול, הקדוש, שנקרא שתעלה בעוונותינו. It's because of our sins, שרבו, we had so many, למעלה ראש באשמותינו, it's our fault, שגדלנו עד לשמיים, ליבי על הר המוריה, מאי על קודש הקודשים. My heart is torn over the mountain, my innards are torn apart because of the Bet HaMikdash. ואני אהיה לך נאום השם חומת אש סביב, Hashem, please bring us consolation. That's his text. He wants to rewrite the whole thing. He says, make it pertinent, make it something that's actual, not say about the city that's destroyed. So he's even more radical than Michaim, who just want to change one word and make it the best. That says, no, let's make it current, right? The way that it is, the way that we're living out. Because that's what we should be mourning about. In Yerushalayim, we should be focused more on not the city. Because if you think about it, the Tefillah that these was written by Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, this Nachem. Did it mention the Mikdash once? Go back to the beginning. Nachem Hashem et Evle Tzion, et Evle Yerushalayim, Ha'ir, the city. Hareva, B'zuyah Shema, Rosha Hafui Ki Isha Akara Lo Yalda. Our hair is covered like he has no children. by Ba'alua Legionim V'Yerashua, these armies came in, they inherited the land, Yatluat Amach Yisrael, they took your children, Lahered, they killed them, Zadon, all these things, doesn't say anything about the Beit HaMikdash. Talks about the city, talks about Am Yisrael going to Galut, it doesn't say anything about the Beit HaMikdash at all in Nahem. That was written intentionally for Tish'a BeAb, and they didn't mention the Mikdash at all. That's another question.
Because they couldn't imagine you having a city and not having a Beit
That's
HaMikdash.
you have to say, right? Because the whole thing was the city with the there was no, when it didn't enter their mind. Because it was so central that the city equaled Mikdash, so much so that the Rambam considers Yerushalayim, right, part of Beit HaMikdash as far as Kiddusha. According to the Rambam, when you know things that you're supposed to do in the Beit HaMikdash, 7 days lulav in the Torah in Beit HaMikdash, in Yerushalayim it's also the right according to the Rambam. Things that are applied to Beit HaMikdash, because it was really, really one. That's the reason why you have to say, Ezra, that would answer that question. I agree with Ezra 100%. Okay? So, back to our conversation, Rabbi Shlush wants to be more radical. Change the whole thing, make it real. Go ahead.
But based on that logic, wouldn't it now be appropriate to recognize everything as incomplete and destructive, and meaning it's together, it's a package deal. Israel is with Beit HaMikdash, and so if there's no Beit HaMikdash, it is incomplete. You look at it, and it does get possibly perceived as destructive.
You hear his point? Everyone understood what he said? He says, we go with the logic that you're saying, so really, if it's really one, so the fact that we really have this beautiful city, maybe it should be looked at like it's not, because it's still missing the ikad, the main part, right? But
it's still false words.
Go, still false words.
Yeah, he's saying it's
That's right. You're calling the city uninhabited and destroyed, and without people in it. It's very hard to say. So there has to be some kind of happy medium. We'll see how Chacham Rabbi is going to address it, because that's where we need to get to. Yeah, we have a few minutes. Good. Okay. So this question was also brought to Chacham. This is not a new conversation. This is things that should be enter our mind. I mean, we're sitting in the Amidah with the Tefillah. How could this? It's not reality. How am I saying these things? And the question was also asked to Chacham Rabbi, especially in these times when he sees that there's other rabbis that are already saying, let's change the text, let's do something. So Chacham Rabbi is blessed away. Listen to what he has to say. Right, Yahaveh Da'at Siman Mem Gimel L'Chelet Aleph. Anyone wants to read it? Says Ha'im Lo Higia Hasha'a L'Shanot Nosach HaTfilah. Is it time to change this tefillah already of Nahem? Haneimra, he says, U'b'miyohad, especially Masha'orim Al Yerushalayim Ha'ira Haleva B'Zuyah Havela B'Sholema. The language we use, that means it is currently destroyed, it is downtrodden, it's desolate, all these crazy words of Yerushalayim. Says, how could we keep saying these? I was asking, right? He says it's not proper description of what it is today. Tish'a. Okay? He writes. Nahem. This will save you. You may have to go reprint all the books. We'll see there. You'll pull out all those. Don't go Yaakov and reprint. Yeah. He says.
Good for business.
It's good for business. He says, "Tefilat Nahem shu me'inam me'orah." Tish'a BeAb. That's like the Ya'aleh B'Yavov, Tish'a BeAb. That's the tefillah that we say, that we commemorate the day of what it is. Tefillat Nahem. He says like this. He says, if you check the Sidurim of Rav Sa'adia, Rav Amram, so Gaon's time, the Geonim right after the Gemara, he says the text is almost exactly the way we have it, but minor changes. And he says that in Sidur of Rav Sa'adia Gaon, there's something over there that he writes about, that the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, when they set up the Tefillah, okay, actually set up Tefillah, they had two versions. One for when Beit HaMikdash was around, and one for Beit HaMikdash was not around. Okay? And he says that they were Shnei Stadim HaTefillah, said Achal Zman Malchut Yisrael, when Am Yisrael was in control of the land. They said that Miyu'ad L'Zman HaGalut, there was a Tefillah, there was a text for the Galut. That's the one that we're using now, the text of the Galut. He has both of these. So this is what they would say when Bnei Israel were in Israel, in control of Israel. This was Tefillah, and this is the Tefillah we use with Galut. Okay. And he says that it's very interesting. I'll mention it because it's a side note, but it's very interesting to know that when we know that in times that Bnei Israel came back from Babel to Galut after the first destruction, they came back by Sheni. Not everybody came. Not everybody. Majority didn't come. The minority came, and he says that they sent the conversation back when Ezra, Soffer was telling them, "What are you doing? Come back and forth." Talks about it. He says that the Tefillah of Emet v'Yatziv v'Nachon v'Kayam v'Yashar was written by the people in Galut and sent to Eretz Yisrael, telling them, listen, don't think that just because we didn't come back that we don't believe in the Geulah, we don't believe in this. They would say, we know from the Geulah that this bite is also going to be destroyed. And we just don't want to have to move back and forth. We're chilling over here, leave us alone. We know this is not the end, this is an interim point, and therefore they will mitaken this tefillah. Hashem is emet, v'yatzi, v'nachon, v'kayam, v'yashar, all these adjectives of Hashem being the one in control and all truthful. This was written by them. Why? Because otherwise it would maybe look at like apikonos. We don't believe we're going to get Geulah. What are you not coming back for? He's saying Galul. No, that's written over there, a side point, but it's interesting to know. Anyway, so he says that the tefillah, according to Chavadya, of this was obviously written by Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, at least according to this source of Sa'adat Ha'on. And he says that this tefillah was written through Ruach HaKodesh. He says, we don't have the right to change this tefillah. He says, the words themselves have in them mystical understanding that we can't understand. They have certain combinations of words and letters that spell out Shemot of Hashem. It's not written just like somebody could just write a text. Oh yeah, I don't like this composition, I'm going to change my homework. I'm writing an essay. It's not an essay. This was written by the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. And who are you to think you have the right to change one letter, says the Chavadya. Not one letter. And he brings proof about the psukim of how he brings sources of how they actually spell out different words and different things. I'm not going to go through it all now, we don't have enough time. But he says that according to Chavadya, step one is the first approach to counteract all these ideas is that we're not allowed to change the text. Forget about it. We're not on the level of the people that are allowed to change this text. That's his first approach. His second approach is more pertinent, because that's a little bit mystical. Okay, right? Yeah, okay, maybe, fine. Understandable, but he brings another source. He says, he says, even if you want to look at the pshat of the words, the destructive city, that he says, shehi al har Tzion sheshomem. It says har Tzion. What's har Tzion? The top of the mountain, where the Beit HaMikdash was. It says, ki makom HaMikdash u'svivato. Who's in charge exactly? Remind me again, says that again. Netunim biyad zarim sonei Israel. Your enemy that hates you, that wants to kill you. Turn on the news, you go watch down the rockets are flying. Right? They want to kill you. The Yerushalayim ha'atika, even the old city. How many quarters are there to the old city? Oh, there's 4, right? We own what? This much? Right? Odera mele'ad gilulim. There's how many churches in the old city of Yerushalayim exactly? Kama knesiot temeot. Asher yirid kamerehem. They're what do you call those guys? The priests. Umadigam, how much Jewish blood did they spill through the generations? These guys are in control of our city. Shenishbach kamayim v'sivivot hamikdash, right around there. And what about the Ishmaelim over there? They bury their dead. They bring their dead. By the way, some of them bring part of the funeral process. They bring the body up to the mountain, to the rock. Saviv Rishalim Yitalukun. He says, go around this going. That's what we want to be happy about. You want to be happy? Change the words. Am I allowed to go up on the mountain right now? Can any of us go up on the mountain? No, you can go there. So what are we talking about? We're happy. We have. What do you have? You can't even walk up the mountain. You can't go. Assume you're Torah for us. Well, they all come in. We're all impure, spiritually impure. Can't go up there. As they said, for what? The Arevim. Right? We know the Arabs, like I told you, they bring all their dead bodies there. Okay. And he says furthermore, come up, this one I know maybe this is written a little earlier, he says, I think he was talking about over here about the Churvashu. Yerushalayim was still destroyed. There's many cities, synagogues in the old city that were destroyed. Most of them were rebuilt. I don't think there's any left that are not rebuilt. But this Tish'a was written earlier on again to counteract all the ones in the 70s and when they were just getting this gung-ho, let's change it after the 6-Day War. There was still, the Churvashu was only built, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, not even maybe less, right? Maybe 10 years ago. So there was still, he says, that there was still Beit Knesset in the city, in the part that we control, that are destroyed. Fine. And therefore he says, that's what you want to be happy about, you want to change the text. I'm telling you that the text has Kiddushah to it. It's written by a Sheikh that says, well, we don't even understand what it says. And not only that, there's plenty of stuff in there that's still true. Hai Tzion, we can't go on the mountain. The mountain's in their hands. What are you talking about? It is desolate. Is there one Jew up there on top of the mountain? No. You're not allowed to go there. It is empty. So it's true, he says. Why would you want to change? Now, what do you say now?
I gotta see the text.
Okay, then go.
We're saying Yerushalayim, now we're saying it says, so how?
So it says like
What does
this.
say?
It says, I'll read you the words. Nahem Hashem et avle Tzion et avle Yerushalayim, ha'ir ha'charuva, ha'hareva, v'hapizuya, v'hashomeba, v'beli banei ha'yoshev.
How are you?
Yeah,
But
Ha'ir.
Yerushalayim, it's
I
not.
agree, it says Ha'ir. That's what he says. It says Ha'ir.
Where's Hatzion?
Har Tzion is later on in the text. Yeah. Al Ken, he says over here, Al Ken Sion b'meret tivkeh b'shalak tekola. It's in there. Sion. It doesn't say Har Tzion. It says Sion.
So is he looking at a different reference?
Baruch atah Hashem menachem Tzion b'binyan Yerushalayim. That's the berachat in the
Where-
text.
He's right.
Yeah, it doesn't say Har Tzion. It says Sion, but that's the Tzion is the mountain tree. Okay, fine. And he says, therefore, he doesn't want to change not one letter. Lachen mihu zeh ve'ezehu. He says, b'dorot ha'elu she'achol le'archiv oz ve'letaken. The fix, he says. Who is this guy who's so outspoken, so brazen, that has the gall to say he's going to change the text? Shambling all the
What
other.
was his relationship with the Chaim David?
Yeah, very good, very good. No, he's the one who appointed him. Yeah. He's after me, take him. They got along very well, no problem. But he doesn't mean that just because they get along doesn't mean they agree in halakha. There's a difference between fighting and disagreeing in halakha. This is one believes this is the emet, and another one believes this is the emet. That's part of it's a philosophy problem that a lot of people have. Just because rabbis disagree doesn't mean they don't get along. It's a big philosophy problem. You're allowed to disagree. When I have a source. Cham David Halavi has a beautiful shot. He says it's logical. Look at the word. Look around. Cham David also has a beautiful source. He says, listen, this is written by Nachekos Gola. You can't change these words. You know. Plus, they're still true. So great. It's a beautiful example of a mahlok l'shem shamayim. Each one believes they're true, and that doesn't mean they don't get along with each other, right? And Cham David Halavi changed his text. Like we have proof. Some of our Sidurim in the community have been changed. And we have the other ones that have not been changed, right? But, so anyway, back to what he wants to do. We have BeAb. He says, Gam l'fi pshuto, no sifat l'nachem, so I skipped my line back. There we go. Okay. So at the end of the day, what does he want to say? He says, Umilvad gam zeh, at the end of the day, he says, Gam haruhanuyot shel Yerushalayim. He brings one more side. He says, the spiritual level of the city of Yerushalayim, so this one also it's very low. It's written also again earlier on. It's in this about the late 70s, early 80s. This Tish'a was written. So again, since then it's been definitely changed the shul. We know there's all kinds of resurgence of Chozur B'Tshuvah and all kinds of Tishivot. There are still parts of Yerushalayim where there's plenty of Yehudim, no question about it. And therefore he says we should be upset about that also, right? He says out there, and then he brings an unbelievable mashal that I'm going to share with you. He says, the people that want to change the text of Yerushalayim and think that this is what it is, he brings a mashal from the Magid Midubna, who says like this. He says, there's a pasuk that says, Hateh oznecha lerinati, please pay attention to my rina, my song. Why? Ki saba'a veraot nafshi, because my neshama, my nefesh, is saveya, satiated with ra'ah. What kind of pasuk does that mean? Listen to my song. My nefesh was satiated with bad things. So I don't say pasuk. What do you mean? I'm singing because I'm full of bad? What does that mean? He says, Mashal. His family was traveling in the desert. They get lost. They were going on a hike. Wow, they get lost. And now they're running out of water. They're running out of food. They find some berries. Okay. They eat the berries. Ugh. 20 minutes later, stomach's killing me. Okay. They have no choice. They're hungry. They keep traveling. And then they come, and a couple hours later, they find some more. They need to eat them. 2 days in the desert, lost still. They keep eating. And every time, eat. After 10 days in the desert, they're still there, lost. They're eating the berries. And it doesn't hurt anymore. They got used to it. The father said, the son turns to the father, are these different ones? He says, no, the same ones we've been eating. And then the father starts crying. And he says, why are you crying, Dad? He says, because we got used to the bad. It was bad for us. It was unhealthy. We were getting sick. And we got used to it, and now we're happy. We think it's good, we're full. He says, that's what people say about Yerushalayim. You look at Yerushalayim, you think it's beautiful, you think it's good, we got used to it. It's not supposed to be that way.
I think it's the opposite. We got used to it, okay?
We got used to the fact that there's no Beit HaMikdash, that the Arabs are in control, and we're going there singing and dancing at the kotel, and we're dancing at the place that the destruction is. That's what he's saying. We're dancing and happy at the destruction in front of our face, and we think it's good. Turn your head around. Spin your head around. He says that's the problem. It's part of the problem, because we got used to it. With that, I'm gonna finish. So again, at the end of the day, where are we? There's two tables. There's two schools of thought. There's two schools. I'm not being posek halacha for anybody. We got two books in the community. They're both out there, and then it's up to you to figure out what you want to do. Chavajah is very clear. I'm sure that that's why you guys didn't change the text. And the other book,
David, my son David.
okay, I'm sure that that's why they didn't change the text. The other books that are out there are based on Chavajah. Will be also big shoulders to lean on, and that's where we're at. So for us, from our perspective, we go to Yerushalayim. Are we happy? Yes. Are we excited that we have what we have? Yes. But we have to keep in the back of our mind that that's not there. We're not there yet. And that's what Tish'a about. That's what we're still mourning now. Why are we going around and still fasting? It's that missing piece of the puzzle that we sometimes don't even realize that we're missing.